going to call the meeting to order, please, and if you would stand and let's salute the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Public notice, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, Commissioners. Adequate public notice has been given pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice has been posted at the Board's office and website, emailed to the Department of State, and to newspapers of broad circulation within the state.
Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner Holden?
Here.
Commissioner Solomon?
Here.
Commissioner Chukwu?
Here.
Commissioner Gordon?
Here.
President Fiorisa.
Here. And when's our next regularly scheduled meeting?
Our next regular board meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022. Will be live streamed via YouTube.
Thank you. And again, I'd like to welcome everyone here in the audience and those who are live streaming us. We're going to have an executive session today, and the board will be addressing two telecommunication issues, and regarding one regarding broadband, and the other matter, request for responses to the furtherance of the implementation of broadband. So both relative to broadband. And with the infrastructure and bill that passed Congress and signed by the President, the idea of expanding broadband is obviously up and running, so to speak. And we also have a clean energy item, request for quotation for consulting services for the third offshore wind solicitation. And those are the three items that we'll be addressing in executive session. So if you could tell us, Michael, why we're going to do this, or what allows us to do this.
Yes, good morning, Mr. President, Commissioners.
Good morning.
On the agenda this morning, we have items 4A, 4B, and 8G. Each one of these items falls within the contract negotiations exception to the Open Public Meetings Act, and that exception is found in New Jersey Statute 10:4-12B7.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And anyone who is not a member of the Board of Public Utilities or Division of Law, please vacate the premises. You tell me when you're ready. You ready? First thing I'd like to do in this open session, and welcome back everyone, is to recognize the fact that Harold Bond has been promoted to Deputy Director of Cable Television and Telecommunications. And I know you all join with me in congratulating Harold, and you will all give him the necessary support so that he can continue to do an outstanding job. Congratulations, Harold. We have some job openings here at the board, and so on. And you think you get to a point where you've covered all the positions and you have succession plans in place, and so on. And then some people have the nerve to retire, and so on, and others move on. Broadband manager is one of the positions that we're certainly looking to fill. This is a position that requires some knowledge of the broadband world and so on. So if you know anyone or can direct someone to go to our website, take a look at it, and see if it's a position that interests them, please encourage them to do so. We have been very fortunate, I believe, in the past 4 years in hiring outstanding individuals, and some of whom gave us information during the executive session today. And it's only because of the effectiveness of those people that we're able to move along on our quest, not only to bring broadband to all of New Jersey, but also to mitigate the effects of climate change. I'm going to sound like a broken record. There are many, many, many people who are still in arrears as far as their utility bills are concerned. And I encourage them to reach out to their local utility, set up a payment plan with them, or discover what assistance programs there are if you're in that situation where you need help. They want to help you. They want to direct you. Go to our website, the Board of Public Utilities website. See what assistance programs are available. I mean, we're going into the 3rd year of this pandemic, something that none of us have experienced in our lifetime. So, I'm sure mistakes have been made along the way, not necessarily in helping people, but in other areas, medically and so on. But we have to keep in mind that none of us have gone through this before. But there is help for those who are in financial or in a financial situation that require it. So please, call your utility, look at our website, see what's available to assist you. Because ultimately the bill has to be paid. So, and I know I keep encouraging that and so on, and it's vital. Do any of my colleagues have anything they would like to? It's not me.
No, one of the things about broadband, okay?
I think it's my
Go
auto
on.
warranty is probably up.
Yeah, the broadband is such a hot topic right now with all the 5G going on and all the different, with all the federal monies floating around. And so it's going to be very difficult finding, because it's a highly competitive marketplace. So I think one of the ideas or suggestions I have is that maybe we should look into some universities where the students may be in their final year, and we can bring them in and groom them so that way at least we can get our, the task force mission will be accomplished. So it's just a thought.
Thank you. Anyone else? The consent agenda, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the following consent agenda items, 2A, 3A, and 9A.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Fiordaliso?
Yes. We'll now proceed with the regular agenda. There are no items under audits to be considered. That brings us to energy. Mr. Lupo.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning. First one is Atlantic City Electric,
Correct.
2A.
On December 22nd, 2021, ACE filed a petition seeking approval of settlement agreements between ACE and Chambers Cogeneration Limited Partnership, or Chambers, and ACE and Logan Generating Company, LP, or Logan, as well as modified existing power purchase agreements such that existing interconnection rights would be preserved, but coal-fired electric generation would cease, and terminate existing power sales agreements with Chambers and Logan respectively. In the petition, ACE stated that it will make a series of negotiated fixed monthly payments for the remaining term of the existing PPAs and PSAs, which will be partially offset by customer benefit payments from Chambers and Logan. Staff recommends that the board issue an order designated commissioner and setting a date in which entities seeking to participate or intervene can file the appropriate application with the board by February 9th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
And I want to ask you, Commissioner Solomon, would you like to?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So we have a presiding commissioner. Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Fiordaliso?
Yes. 2B, Paul, New Jersey Natural Gas.
On June 11th, 2021, New Jersey Natural Gas Company filed a petition seeking review and authorization to increase its energy efficiency rate for the recovery of costs associated with the company's Save Green program. According to the petition, based upon actual information through April 30th, 2021, and estimated information for the period May 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2021. New Jersey Natural anticipated being over-recovered at September 30th, 2021 by approximately 0.136 million, which was subsequently updated based upon actual information through September 2021. Based upon the update, New Jersey Natural anticipated being over-collected at December 30th, 2021 by approximately 0.618 million. The parties have subsequently executed a stipulation that would allow New Jersey Natural to increase its energy efficiency rate based upon the rate proposed in the petition, which was publicly noticed. As a result of the stipulation, New Jersey Natural Gas Company's typical residential customers will experience an increase in their monthly bill of approximately 33 cents or 0.2%. Staff recommends that the board issue an order approving the stipulation and direct New Jersey Natural to file revised tariffs on January 31st, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Fiordaliso?
Yes. And then 2C, Paul, Public Service Electric.
On June 29th, 2021, PSE&G filed a petition seeking approval to decrease its electric solar pilot recovery charge. The filing requested a decrease in the SPRC revenues of approximately $2.669 million for the period October 1, 2021 through September 30th, 2022. Subsequently, PSE&G updated the revenue requirement to include actual data through September 2021. The parties have subsequently executed a stipulation that would allow PSE&G to decrease its electric SPRC rate based upon the update. As a result of the stipulation, PSE&G's typical residential electric gas customers will experience a decrease in their current annual bill of approximately 28 cents or 0.02%. Staff recommends that the board issue an order approving the stipulation and direct PSE&G to file revised tariffs by January 31st, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call, please.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Walden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes, thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Commissioners.
No items under cable television to be considered. That brings us to telecommunications and Lawanda. Relative to broadband access.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
This matter seeks board approval to release a request for quotation or RFQ to hire a consultant to provide support services to the Broadband Access Study Commission, which was created by legislation signed into law by Governor Murphy in July of last year. The law creates a 19-member commission led by the board president with representation from various state agencies, including OIT, Rate Council, EDA, the Departments of Agriculture, Education, Community Affairs, and the State Library, as well as private sector appointments made by the governor with input from the leaders of both houses of the legislature. This commission is charged with evaluating both the impediments of access and affordability of ubiquitous broadband service throughout the state by looking at physical access, deployment costs, community broadband networks, and the most effective use of the various federal, state, and private funding sources to accomplish these goals. Per the law establishing the commission, a report representing its findings must be submitted to the governor and the legislature no later than 1 year following the first meeting of the commission, after which the commission will expire. Staff requests approval today for the release of the proposed RFQ to procure a consultant to assist the board staff and the commission with assessing the broadband issues and the preparation of the final commission report. Funding will come through the Federal Coronavirus Capital Projects Fund, which is part of the American Rescue Plan. All the necessary permissions have been received from the Department of Treasury and the State Comptroller's Office through our Budget and Fiscal Office. Concurrently with the release of this RFQ, the board will also be considering in the next item a recommendation regarding a choice for the request for response that was approved by the board on December 1st, 2021, which will solicit proposals from the New Jersey colleges and universities to engage in providing GIS mapping at street level to identify areas in New Jersey that lack broadband service and affordable broadband options. The mapping data and report resulting from the RFR will provide the Commission with an initial tool to begin its work and can be used by the consultant procured under the RFQ, who will carry out a more in-depth investigation and analysis and prepare the final Commission report. Staff therefore recommends the board approve the release of the RFQ to seek the consultant for the Broadband Access Study Commission.
So moved.
Second.
I think it should be noted that members of the commission are still in the process of being appointed. So when our first meeting occurs, it may be a little bit down the road, And that's when that year, the clock starts running for the year. Because at the end of that year, then, we have to present a report to the governor and to the legislature. And if one good thing has come out of this pandemic, it's the idea that it demonstrated very clearly that there are parts of New Jersey that don't have accessibility. And one would think, we live in the New York, Philadelphia metropolitan area, most of us don't even give it a second thought about broadband accessibility. But there are parts of New Jersey where they don't have it. And that's unacceptable. Particularly when we saw and continue to see during this pandemic, people working from home, children studying from home, and some at an extreme disadvantage because they don't have access. So this is something that is vital to the education of our children and vital for those who still aren't back in the office. Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you,
Thank you.
Luanda. Frank, you're going to talk about an MOU relative to broadband.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Frank.
Earlier, I made a presentation to you in executive session detailing the scoring of the responses of the previous board-issued RFR for a needs assessment to be provided to the Broadband Access Study Commission. Based upon our discussion, I ask that you authorize the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities and New Jersey Institute of Technology for a broadband needs assessment.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
There are no items under water, reliability and security, and customer assistance for consideration today, so that brings us to clean energy. And Ariane, I think you're first up for items 8A and 8B.
That I am. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Mr. President. Item 8A relates to proposed amendments to the Transition Incentive Program rules. On June 9th, 2021, the board issued proposed rule amendments to the Transition Incentive Program rules intended to improve the administration of the TR program based on lessons learned from the implementation of the program since it opened to new registration on May 1st, 2020. The proposed changes included the creation of a definition and TREC factor for floating solar projects, clarification of definitions and terms for eligibility for the TI program, amendments to the provisions pertaining to the use of a standing order, clarification of the TREC registration period for projects granted conditional approval in the Community Solar Energy Pilot Program, and clarification of the applicability of prevailing wage requirements to projects 1 megawatt DC or greater. The rule amendments were published in the New Jersey Register on August 2nd, 2021. They were open to public comments for 60 days. The board received 5 public comments. Staff recommends that the board adopt the proposed rule amendments without changes. If approved, these amendments will be sent to the Office of Administrative Law and become effective upon publication in the New Jersey Register.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments for Ariane? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. And then the next one is our Susie.
Yes, the next one is Susie, also rulemaking. On July 14th, 2021, the board issued a proposed rule to amend its existing solar energy rules and create a new subchapter establishing the successor solar incentive SUSE program. This program is intended to serve as a permanent program for providing solar incentives to qualified solar electric generation facilities. The proposed rulemaking implements the requirements of the Clean Energy Act of 2018 and the Solar Act of 2021 by creating the SUSE program as a replacement to the Transition Incentive Program. The SUSE program includes two sub-programs, the Administratively Determined Incentive, or ADI program, and the Competitive Solar Incentive Program, or CSI. Each are designed to serve different segments of the New Jersey solar market. The rule proposal includes a new subchapter to create a new incentive delivery instrument known as New Jersey SREC-2s, establishes the processes for registering projects, and amends the renewable portfolio standard rules to account for SREC-2s in the RPS. The rule proposal also establishes the overall program structure for the ADI program. The rule proposal was published in the New Jersey Register on August 16, 2021, and was open to public comments for 60 days. The board received 8 public comments. Staff recommends that the board adopt the proposed rule with non-substantive changes. If approved, the rule proposal will be sent to the Office of Administrative Law and become effective upon publication in the New Jersey Register.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes, thank you, Ariane.
Thank you.
That brings us to item 8C, regarding an intervention by Public Service Electric and Gas. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Mr. President, Commissioners. Item 8C relates to a petition that was filed by Solar Landscape LLC on November 10th, 2021. Solar Landscape receives approval for 8 projects to participate in Program Year 1 of the Community Solar Energy Pilot Program. The petition requests that the board amend its rules at NJAC 14.8 to 9.7 relating to the matter in which excess community solar bill credits are banked and carried over from month to month. Solar Landscape also requested the board direct Public Service Electric and Gas Company, PSE&G, and the other electric distribution companies to adjust their software and internal processes to allow monitoring of bill credit applications to reduce the loss of bill credits. On December 14th, 2021, PSE&G filed a motion to intervene in the petition as the relief sought would have a direct impact on PSE&G's operations and finances. Staff believes that PSE&G has a significant and direct interest in the outcome of this case and will contribute meaningfully to this proceeding. Staff therefore recommends that the board grant PSE&G's motion to intervene in Solar Landscape's petition. Staff further recommends that the board designate a presiding commissioner and set a bar date for any other entity seeking to intervene or participate.
So moved.
Second.
I'm appointing myself as that presiding commissioner, and any questions or comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Sawyer, thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to item 8D. Ron? Tesla.
Yes. Good morning, first of all.
Good morning.
Item 8D is considers a Tesla Energy Operations October 13, 2021 petition requesting the board grant a 7-month extension to the conditional acceptance expiration date for a 456.72 kilowatt rooftop system to be installed on an Albertson facility located in Cape May, New Jersey under the Transition Incentive Program due to the estimated 6 to 12 months for Atlantic City Electric Company to complete a telemetry upgrade required prior to granting permission to operate. Tesla filed a TI registration with the program administrator and was issued an acceptance letter on February 3rd, 2021 with an expiration date of February 3rd, 2022. Tesla filed an interconnection application with ACE in May of 2021, and in August, ACE reported that they need to upgrade the telemetry system. ACE estimated the cost of the upgrades to be $45,400 and estimated the time needed to complete the upgrade at 6 to 12 months after receipt of a fully executed interconnection agreement. The interconnection work is invoiced and the payment is received before it will approve the PTO. Tesla states that it would not make payment until it received the final invoice. ACE sent the final invoice to Albertson Incorporated, the account holder, on Tuesday, January 25th, 2022. ACE also stated that based on the schedule of other projects ahead of this one, this work most likely will take place in early May and should take only a few days to complete. Staff also notes that the petition reflects a misunderstanding of the application registration expiration date. In fact, following the automatic 6-month extension granted by the board on June 24, 2021, the actual project completion deadline is now August 3rd, 2022. Although ACE's 6 to 12 month time frame more or less has not yet begun to run, there is still time for ACE to complete its work prior to the petitioner's current August 3rd deadline, making the petitioner's extension request premature. Therefore, staff recommends that the board deny the petition.
So moved. Second.
Questions, comments for Ron? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Kathleen, you're up. Charge Up New Jersey program.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
This item pertains to the Charge Up New Jersey program. The first year of the program was a post-purchase incentive, and vehicles purchased between January 17th and December 15th, 2020 were eligible. Eligible applicants were required to submit an application through the post-purchase portal by March 15th, 2021. According to Mr. Simboyevic, he purchased his EV, Tesla Model 3, on March 16, 2020. He asserts he filed his application through the Charge Up New Jersey post-purchase portal on March 2, 2021. However, no application was received. It should be noted that the post-purchase portal closed on March 15, 2021, as outlined in the December 14, 2020 announcement. On May 12, 2021, the petitioner reached out to the program administrator for an update on his application. The program administrator told him that no such application existed in the CSC system. As the portal was at that point closed, the petitioner was directed to the board. On May 25, 2021, the petitioner wrote an email appeal to the staff's Division of Clean Energy. On September 16, 2021, staff issued a letter response denying his appeal due to the application portal having closed, thus making the petitioner ineligible for the incentive he sought. The petitioner filed an appeal with the board, claiming he had computer issues in February and March of 2021 that would have impacted his electronic application submission. Petitioner requested payment for a vehicle and an in-home charger. Staff recommends that the board deny this appeal based on the fact that the petitioner attempted to file his application after the post-purchase portal was closed. Additionally, staff recommends the board deny the request for payment for an in-home charger, as the board does not currently and did not have at the time an in-home charger incentive program.
So moved. Second.
Questions, comments?
Just one comment,
Sure.
that this is not the first time we've had an appeal of some sort based upon some technology snafu or suggested technology snafu, and I think we've been consistent with how we applied our rulings.
Yep, I agree. Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Mr. Nestor.
Morning, sir.
School and small business energy efficiency stimulus.
Good morning, Commissioners.
What are you got on your face there?
It's cold out there, sir.
Oh, I see, okay.
Good morning. This item pertains to the School and Small Business Energy Efficiency Stimulus Program, which was enacted by the Board in October of 2021. This program contains two sub-programs, the School and Small Business, one of which, is the School and Small Business Ventilation and Energy Efficiency Verification and Repair. It's a mouthful, so we use the acronym SSB-VEEVR program. And this program provides grants to schools and small businesses for the maintenance and replacement of certain heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. The program will pay for 75% of total project costs. Specifically under the replacement path of this program, the SSB-VEEVR program, an applicant is able to apply for a utility incentive that would apply to their 25% of cost share. This can create a unique situation where both a state and utility incentive are applied to the same project, which impacts the attribution of energy savings associated with the project under the Clean Energy Act. The statute that authorized this program states, quote, "The board shall adjust energy efficiency savings targets as necessary to ensure that energy savings created through the expenditures made pursuant to this law are not double counted in any public utility energy efficiency program," unquote. In October, the board directed staff to return prior to February with a recommendation on this energy savings question. Staff is engaged in ongoing discussions with the utilities and rate council about this issue. Staff recommends that the board grant staff an extension on this matter and direct staff to return with their recommendation prior to September 2022.
So moved. Second.
Questions, comments?
Are we also looking at not just the energy savings, but the double payment
Yes, Commissioner.
from the two programs, and which one will take precedent?
That is something we've started discussions about. There are a lot of projects already in the pipeline, and it's unclear how many of them were relying upon the second incentive. So that is something we've been discussing, but there are concerns about trying to change the process now after the applications already came in. But that is something we've been following up on after the last conversation.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Jim Ferris. This item we discussed in executive session, and it might be a good time also for me to just remind folks that every item that's presented in a public meeting with the board here is, each commissioner is thoroughly briefed by staff on each item. And it may seem like we go through some of these things quickly, but each commissioner has been briefed and brought up to speed on each one of these agenda items. And staff reads into the public record so that you, the public, know exactly what we're doing and what we're passing or what we're rejecting, and so on. So I just wanted to remind everyone that this is not the first time we, as commissioners, are hearing these presentations. With that, Jim?
Thank you. Good morning, President, Commissioners. This matter is regarding the release of a request for quotations, or RFQ, to retain a consultant to assist staff in the development of the third offshore wind solicitation and in the evaluation of applications received for that solicitation. The scope of work being solicited includes the consultant's assistance in developing and issuing a solicitation for qualified offshore wind projects eligible to receive offshore wind renewable energy certificates, or ORECs. The solicitation will include the integration of transmission projects selected by the board, if any, resulting from the state agreement approach solicitation.
evaluating applications submitted in response to the solicitation, and providing general consulting services related to offshore wind and related transmission scenarios. Staff intends to conduct the procurement of the consultant under the waiver supplement to the State of New Jersey standard terms and conditions. We received approval to use the waiver process from the New Jersey Office of Management and Budget on January 14th, 2022. As discussed in executive session, staff recommends that the board authorize the release of the RFQ.
So moved. Second.
Questions, comments?
Comment.
Comment.
I know that we're moving forward with the engaging a consultant to help us with the third solicitation, and also, I guess, the applications, the solicitation document, and then also with the review of the applications. Is that
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, the understanding, and, I'm just, it'll be an interesting exercise, as it has been in the past too, and, I thank you for always keeping us up to date where we are and how you've done that in the past, but, we're, fully aware that we have to consider when we're making these decisions moving forward the full life cycle and benefits of all these investments. There's, depending on the type of generation we're talking about, that can vary widely. We're talking about 20 years generally here, where, other types of generation are much longer and lasting in terms of what they produce. So, I'm concerned in terms of timing that we have a full understanding of all those full life cycle costs and benefits, for that matter, moving forward with the schedule that we're keeping. And, I will be particularly interested in hearing what this consultant has to say, and in the review of those proposals, to ensure that we have the information available to us, absent, other information that we have yet to receive today about the cost of what we're doing here as a board.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other questions, comments? I think the points you bring up, Diane, are certainly important. And I believe, though, also that we have to continue to move forward. And I think we've done that, for the most part, in a prudent way, always keeping in mind the expense and who's paying for it. And it's all of us who are paying for it, and we understand that. But with the urgency of what we're looking at as a planet, I think the cost is certainly an important factor. But also the cost of doing nothing is not an option. So I think we have to keep an eye on both and ensure the fact that the ratepayer in New Jersey is getting the best bang for the buck. So,
Can't be the only ones paying.
I'm sorry?
Yes, and that we're not the only ones paying for those benefits.
No? But good things do cost money, unfortunately. Any other questions? Any other comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Hunter. Solar successor.
Yes, sir. Hello, Commissioners.
Hello, Scott.
This item relates to staff's recommendation for the board to modify the program eligibility conditions in the administratively determined incentive program.
Now it's my turn. I'm sorry.
Say no.
Zero on warranty.
Oh, yeah, my 1998 Oldsmobile warranty just ran out.
Silent. Oh, gosh.
I'm sorry.
I'm checking my
In reviewing the request for from solar developers for an extension of time to complete projects in the transition incentive program, staff have identified a barrier to timely registration of projects in the administratively determined incentive program. The board's July 28 order establishing the successor solar incentive program contained a provision requiring submission of a complete ADI program registration package and receipt of a notice of conditional registration prior to beginning construction of the facility. This provision would inhibit projects which had registered in the transition incentive program and begun construction, but were unable to satisfy all the post-construction certification requirements for transition incentive eligibility. Staff recommends the following 3 items. That the board first exempt a project with a valid TI program registration from the requirement that projects seeking eligibility in the ADI program submit a complete ADI program registration package and receive a notice of conditional registration prior to beginning construction of the facility. Second, enable projects registered in the TI program that commence construction but failed to meet the TI deadline for project completion to register in the ADI program. And third, direct staff to develop amendments to the successor solar incentive program rules to codify the exemption for TI projects that meet these conditions to participate in the ADI program.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments for Scott?
One question.
Yes, sir.
Scott, this blanket waiver, will that clean up the pipeline?
It will only apply to projects in the TI program that fail to meet those TI program criteria. So it will not be the entire pipeline.
Any other questions or comments? I have a comment to make, and excuse me for the long statement I'm going to make here, but there are just a few of us in this room who were here through really the infancy of solar and where it is today. I know Stacy was here because she started at 4, right? And I know Scott was here dealing with solar. I'm just talking about others have been here that length of time too, but I'm talking about solar. And I was here, and still am somehow. But since 2018, the New Jersey solar industry has undergone an important transformation. As we worked together with the solar industry to transition away from the SREC program and towards new state incentive programs that would support strong growth of solar in New Jersey. Over 150,000 solar installations are currently operating here in the state of New Jersey. Per square mile, we have more solar installations than any state in the union. In the same vein, ensuring to the best of our ability that ratepayers are getting the best bang for their buck. The board has received a number of requests from projects seeking an extension to their transition incentive program deadlines. We carefully consider each of these petitions as to whether to grant an extension. We weigh the circumstances of the individual projects against New Jersey's overall policy goals and the rules that we have established for each of the solar incentive programs. The transition incentive program was always designed and intended to be a temporary program. that would serve as a bridge between the SREC and the new successor solar incentive program. It is important that we weigh the cost of our incentive programs for ratepayers, while seeking to ensure that incentives are right-sized to the needs of the project. Regardless of the board's decision on individual extension requests, we know that not all projects currently registered in the Transition Incentive Program will reach permission to operate prior to their deadline. We know that it is critical that project developers have clear line of sight into the incentive program rules and their options for development. Today's action will ensure that projects that have started construction while registered in the Transition Incentive Program will not be prevented from subsequently registering in the administratively determined incentive program. We believe that projects that don't complete in the Transition Incentive Program nonetheless have a landing and a place in the successor program, as we committed to providing as much certainty and clarity for all solar projects, both now and in the future. Keep in mind that solar developers many times disagree with the position that the board takes. But we also have to keep in mind that many times we're looking at it from different perspectives. Developers looking at it from a particular viewpoint. We're looking at it from trying to ensure the fact that the ratepayer is getting the best bang for their buck and that the solar industry remains strong. And that's been our commitment for close to 20 years now, to ensure the success of the solar program. And unfortunately, there are some that every time there's a change, whether we're going into the SREC program or we're coming out of the SREC program, some folks will yell that the sky is falling. We're not going to let the sky fall. The solar industry is an important industry in the state of New Jersey, employing almost 7,000 people. Continues to grow. There has been more interest in our community solar programs, more interest in individual solar programs, more landfills and brownfields being used as solar farms. We're looking at dual use on the farms here in New Jersey, which can economically be beneficial to our local farmers. And in many cases, let them stay in business. So, together with the solar industry, I think we have achieved, along with the support of the ratepayers, a solid, a strong, a progressive, and profitable solar industry. And that's, again, because of the many people who have worked on developing this solar industry right here within the Board of Public Utilities, and Scott being one of the prominent ones. So I know Scott will continue, as everyone will, to ensure the fact that our solar industry gets as much clarification as possible, as much certainty as possible, because any regulatory body is obligated to give as much certainty as they possibly can. So, with that, no one else has anything else to say, sir?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to expand on your comments. I think there are lessons to be learned from American economic history here. When we have wanted to build a new industry that we think is in the public interest, like railroads, for example, the government provides subsidies. But it's important to recognize that there comes a point, once an industry gets established, that you have to pull back on those subsidies. Otherwise, you can end up subsidizing inefficient companies. In the beginning of the oil industry, it was a mom and pop operation of people, wildcatting. And at some point, Standard Oil came along who could do it more efficiently than these smaller operations. And the industry changed and the subsidies changed. We were very successful, as the President cited, in building a solar industry here in New Jersey. But there comes a point where we really need market forces to take over. And the result of that may be that some companies will not be able to compete, but presumably the most efficient ones will. And what I like about our program is that we have an opportunity to at certain milestones, look back and check and see how these incentives are working. And if we made a mistake, if they were too low or too high, we can make those adjustments midstream. I think we're taking the appropriate path here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's important to try to calculate when it's time for government to step aside and let the free market do what the free market has to do. And in its infancy, it needed us, as you aptly say, Bob. And it's time that we start the process of weaning that solar industry off of government. And I used this analogy some years ago. It's almost like raising a child. When they're an infant, you do everything for them. They got a pretty good life when they're an infant. But as they grow, mom and dad's influence lessens to the point where they're now able to walk and think on their own, make decisions on their own. Decisions that are going to determine their future. And mom and dad we're always there to help if they ask for it. But we continue to move back and allow that child to lead their life. And that's, I think, an appropriate role for government. Something in the public interest, as the commissioner indicated. The time has come for us to let them walk and think on their own to a large extent. And they always know we're here if they're needed. So if there are no other comments or whatever, Scott, thank you very much. And thank you for all the work you've done over the past number of years.
Thank you.
Welcome.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. And we finish up with the one and only Mike Cameron. Hello, Michael.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. President and Commissioners.
There is only one of you, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry.
Actually, we could use a few more.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
9A involves a motion for reconsideration filed by Shore Water Company. Shore Water Company is a small family-run company in South Seaside Park that serves approximately 1,200 seasonal customers who receive water service from April through October. So small number of condominiums, Island Beach State Park, and the Governor's Shore House. The board's and this motion for reconsideration deals with the board's customer bill of rights. The board first adopted a customer bill of rights in 1986. The customer bill of rights has been updated periodically through orders issued by the board to reflect changes in the board's regulations, and more recently to address temporary consumer protections mandated by Governor Murphy through various executive orders that the governor issued in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Also in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, legislation was enacted that required utility companies to, among other things, provide monthly notice to its customers of their utility rights for a period of 18 months after the termination of Executive Order 103. The new law reserved the termination as to the form and manner of the notices to customers to the board. On September 14, 2021, the board issued an order setting forth the requirements of the new law. The board subsequently received waiver requests from several utility companies requesting a change to the method, means, and frequency of the notice notifying customers of their rights. Shore Water Company was one of those companies who filed a waiver request. Specifically, Shore requested a waiver of the monthly notice requirement of the law, arguing that its customer base was largely comprised of a seasonal population of about 1,200 customers. Shore requested that it be allowed to post the revised Bill of Rights, Customer Bill of Rights, on its website, along with a link to the board's Customer Bill of Rights webpage to satisfy the notice requirements of the board's orders and the new law. The board denied Shore's waiver request at its December 15th public agenda meeting. The board determined that merely posting the revised Bill of Rights on its website was too passive an approach to qualify as a notice under the new legislation. Additionally, the board determined that the approach requested by Shore also failed to meet the express language of the law requiring notice on a monthly basis. Shore filed a motion for reconsideration on December 23rd. In support of its motion, Shore once again argued that the board did not take notice of that it bills its customers on an annual basis. Additionally, Shore noted that a number of its customers do not live in the service territory year-round. Shore subsequently filed a letter with the board on January 6, 2022, proposing alternate methods for compliance of the notice requirement. First, Shore proposed to include the revised Customer Bill of Rights of the annual bill that it sends out to its customers in the first quarter of 2022. Secondly, the company proposed that residential customers who have an email address on file with the company be proposed to be notified via email. And lastly, the company requested that if we don't have an email address on record, it will either request an opt-out for those customers or send them a postcard with the link to the revised Bill of Rights. Staff has a number of recommendations in regard to Shore's request. First, staff recommends that the board grants Shore's request to send the revised Customer Bill of Rights and its annual bill that will be sent to customers in the first quarter of 2022, provided that this mailing is in addition to the monthly notice required by the new legislation. Staff further recommends that the board grants Shore's request to send monthly emails to those customers who have an email address on file. Staff notes that the board does have the authority to determine the form and manner on which the monthly notices are sent to customers. And the board has previously decided that an email is an acceptable form of notice. Staff also recommends that the board grant Shore's request to mail monthly postcards that contain the website link to the revised customer bill of rights to customers because it meets the requirements of the new law for monthly notification to customers. Finally, staff recommends that the board denies Shore's request to give customers an option to opt out of receiving the monthly notice because customers could not opt out under the new legislation.
I'll go ahead for discussion.
Mr. President?
Second.
Yes.
Thank you. I would like to add a recommendation to Shore, and I do hope that their representatives are listening to this today. I think what we have here is a situation that reflects some inherent flaws in our legislative process. And I spent 14 years moving bills through the legislative process, and I encountered these myself. Often you have situations where because of organizational barriers between the executive branch and the legislative branch, you have the staff or legislators developing a bill and not being aware of some of the technical nuances that people in the executive branch would know about, like a mic camera. There are situations where a legislator could spend months working on a bill, and the executive branch shows up at the end of the process, literally in a committee hearing, to announce that they've discovered problems in this bill and you need to make changes. And often what happens is amendments are drafted on the spot in a committee hearing to fix those problems. And then there are also situations where a bill gets through the process and gets enacted with flaws in them. And I went back and looked at the original bills, or the authors of the original bills. This was Assembly Bill 4671, sponsored by Assemblyman Scher and Assemblywoman Swain, and Senate Bill 3326 sponsored by Senators Ruiz and Singleton. These are all very skilled legislators, but I'm willing to bet that they had no idea that Shore Water Company with 1,200 seasonal customers existed, and the provisions in their bill might be inappropriate for a situation like that, or a Mount Olive or a Butler. I didn't know that these companies existed until I got here. So what I would recommend to Shore is not to continue approaching the BPU with requests for waivers, but to go back to the legislators and sit down with them and suggest some language to amend the statute. In the legislature, we call these cleanup bills. We do them all the time. And I'm confident that if the affected companies approach the original offers and make a reasonable case, they can get the language changed and this problem addressed. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah. Commissioner?
I was going to say, you took the words out of my mouth, and you said it much more eloquently than I would have. I just want to go back over what we're recommending to do, because, many of us have run for political office. We know what a mailing costs, not only the printing of the postcard, but the actual sending it out. It's thousands of dollars for just 1,200 people. This company has revenue like, what, 600,000
Yes.
a year? So you're talking maybe 4 or 5% of their revenue is going to go for this mailing. So I'm all for making some kind of accommodation here. So let me just go back over what we're doing. They're going to send out the bill of rights with their annual bill.
Yes.
They get billed once a year, except for there's a couple of, I think, commercial customers. And
Island Beach State Park, some of the condominiums, the Governor's Shore House are billed quarterly, but everybody else is billed once a year.
I assume if we have the governor's email address, he can get his bill of rights. Okay, so that, everyone gets it at least annually, the paper copy or whatever. I remember having this discussion during the briefing because I had gotten a bill that had the link in Spanish on the
Right.
bill, but I didn't have anything in English for the bill of rights. That's all right. I still understood it. If they have an email address, they will get the monthly notification by email.
Yes.
So they're going to do a mailing to, or is it part of the annual mailing, they're gonna ask for email addresses, or how?
That's just something we could suggest to them. If they don't have an email address on file for the company, under the legislation, they're gonna be required to notify the customers via snail mail every month for the next 18 months or so. And they're proposing to do that notification with a postcard, and the postcard will have a link to their website with the customer bill of rights on it, and they're estimating that will cost approximately $20,000 for the next 18 months, which is going to amount to eventually a $20 rate increase per customer. So it's a very big expense, and it's a seasonal system. Most of the customers don't even live in New Jersey. A lot of the customers live in suburban Philadelphia on the Pennsylvania side of the river. And the water service is turned on in April, and it's turned off in October for the seasonal population. And for the most part, these are bungalows that have been that were built in the after World War II. This company was built, it's owned by a brother and a sister. They do a very good job. They inherited it from their father, who was the original developer. They file for rate increases on an as-needed basis. They didn't even bat an eye when Sandy happened, and Sandy hit the shore and their service territory very hard. And water was still on. Sandy happened in October, but the water was still on, and customers did not experience any outages. So they do a very good job. So this is going to be a monumental expense for them. The legislation had very good intentions, but I think it was more appropriate for Public Service and JCP&L and South Jersey Gas and New Jersey American and Suez, and not the shore water companies of the world. But absent the ability to grant a waiver under the law, in some ways the board's hands is tied.
And, now that we have Chance and Sam following legislation and getting that to us on a regular basis, it's kind of shame on me for not even seeing this or, realizing that up front, because
Every time legislation is enacted, Chance asks everyone for input and for their thoughts, and we all missed it. Every single one of us missed it, that, this does not address the small water companies of the world. We haven't heard from them, but Simmons Water Company has 55 customers. So because we haven't heard from them, I'm assuming they're complying with the law. We should never assume, but that's another company out there that is potentially impacted by this.
I think that's something where it might be interesting to do a legislative meeting, just to kind of, talk to the legislators about, what it is we do and really what's out there, because I don't think they're aware of how fragmented, particularly the water industry is. And New Jersey's one of the most, gotten together of all the states, because we have so many investor-owned water utilities.
Yes.
But there's still, remember, 565 municipalities. Most of them are either on a municipal water system or a municipal utility authority. I think there's only, 45% are investor-owned in the state. So, there's a lot of legislation that has good intentions, but we don't know who's carrying it out. And is this legislation just governing you know, the things that we regulate, who's checking to see if the municipals are sending this out? I get quarterly bills, I at home. I haven't seen anything on Bill of Rights.
It's a bigger issue than just water. You're hitting one of my hot buttons. I mean,
And they had one.
you know, I think there would be major benefits just by having regular interaction between BPU staff and the Office of Legislative Services or the committee staffs. You know, because, you know, we're a repository of more technical knowledge than they have. And, you know, I just think you get better public policy when you have that kind of information exchange. And unfortunately, you know, that hasn't occurred, and it's not just this administration, I think it's historic.
It is.
You know, there's sort of a competition between the branches, but there, at least at the staff level, I think there's a lot of opportunity for communication and education, you know, in both directions. So, I hope that happens. It's just not water, it's electricity markets, gas issues, telecommunications.
Just to jump in here, I made a similar suggestion when we've dealt with the League of Municipalities to perhaps, because there's such a changeover all the time at both the municipal level, change in with mayors knowing, who to contact, what we do, to have some sort of, communications document that is provided to newly elected officials on a regular basis, as part of a package. I don't know what they are supplied with, having not served in that role, and but I doubt that information is readily available to them. But that will be a sustaining after we leave here. That these people get on a regular basis to advise them about the things that we do and the information that's available to them. So, perhaps a combination of all these efforts will help to, smooth some of these edges moving forward.
Mike, I have a question. There is also a law that requires you to do the encouraging electronic billing. So if we have electronic billing monthly, will that satisfy the law?
Yes, because they'll be getting, because I get my Cablevision bill, for example. I don't get a paper bill from Cablevision, but every month I'm getting an email from Cablevision with my customer bill of rights on it.
So maybe the owner should opt for electronic billing, and so you can have monthly electronic billing, so you can, at least for the time being, what the other commissioners are suggesting is a longer term, and educating the legislators and having all these meetings and all that. Right now, the house is on fire. Let's see how we can help.
Yeah, and it's certainly something we could discuss with them, but I would imagine that there is a cost of providing electronic billing, especially since most customers are only billed once a year. So it's certainly something we could talk to them about, but
I think the software modification, of course, it costs money, but instead of the duration, instead of annual, you can switch it to monthly. So that means same thing, recurring thing. Off season will be $0 because it's not being used, or maybe minimal. And then during the months, actual bill, actual meter charges, and so you could. They must have the software provision.
It seems a little impractical if they're only, you have to send someone out to read the meter every month, unless you're gonna go to AMI, then you go to AMI plus. I think there's a simpler way, and I think Bob's way of, contacting the legislators to try to educate them about this, and I think that once municipalities catch on that this pertains to them as well, I think that tweak to the legislation may come sooner than.
And another interesting thing about Shore is Shore bills a flat rate annually, except for the few customers that are billed quarterly. And 4, maybe 5 rate cases ago, the issue of installing meters for these customers came up, And because it's down the shore with a very high water table, the company was able to demonstrate to everybody's satisfaction that installing meters would just be very expensive and impractical. So it's a unique situation, a unique set of circumstances.
One last question, so then the people who get the quarterly bills, they're gonna be mailed monthly bills?
Yes.
Right, okay, all right. Well, I think, we're gonna have to
Yeah,
encourage a legislative fix on this, because
yeah, and customers won't be able to opt out because, we all get a lot of junk mail. And if a customer would like to opt out, which is one of the things that Shore requested, under the existing legislation, that would
it
be a
looks like
violation
they'd
of the
be
statute.
able to lower the bill
Yeah.
that the company is paying by reaching out and trying to grab those email addresses.
Yes.
And, the initial, the postcards or whatever have to be sent out will get less and less and less.
Any other comments? I just have a couple that I would like to, I am sure, as Bob indicated, the sponsors of that legislation weren't thinking about a company like Shore. They were thinking about New Jersey American Water, they were thinking about Middlesex Water, they were thinking, the big ones.
Yes.
So when you add an expense like that to a company with 1,200 customers, I mean, it's a little imbalance there,
Yeah,
so to speak, okay? So I agree, I think there is a need for a legislative fix here to change the language. But I want to assure my colleagues too that we're in constant contact with the leadership in the legislature. Whether it's the Senate President, whether it's the majority leader, minority leader, the Speaker, and so on. And there is a lot of interaction with legislative offices. Now, do we have a concise piece of paper we can give them? No, but we have materials that we can give them that explain many of the programs that we initiated, many of the programs that we currently have. So we probably have one of the most active legislative offices here at the BPU that we've had in a long time. And it's extremely important that that kind of contact is maintained. And the information that is sought, and many legislative officers contact us. And we assist in every possible way. I remember giving, as an example, a town hall kind of presentation in Union City, New Jersey, which is, I think Union City has more Cuban Americans than Havana. And presented the program in both English and Spanish. Those are the kinds of things we do. And we try to encompass. And we try to encourage legislators before they drop a bill that might affect some of the programs that we take care of, some of the initiatives that we take care of. If they draft legislation, run it by us. Because there may be technical things that they don't know. And it's not their fault. We're just doing it every single day of the week. So of course we're going to know it, hopefully, a little bit better.
Yes.
So the contact is there. And ever since I've been president, I have never been stopped in contacting or meeting with legislators by any authority, because it's important that we have that interaction, or any community group. We've had multiple meetings with the Urban League of Essex County, as an example, in seeing how we could help, particularly during the pandemic. So it's not only the political arena, it's also the community arena. And because we do have a good story to tell, not only as a department, but as a state. There aren't many states in the union that do the kind of job we do and have done over the years with such a small staff. Just think about that. And we continue to move agendas forward. There's meetings being set up with the new Senate President, as an example. So we try to be proactive, and we try to meet with as many of them as we possibly can. And some are interested, frankly, and some aren't. And some don't know what we do, and some could care less. But all I think any of us want is to let them know we're here. And if they do need our services, because this is what we do, and I'm sure my colleagues get calls from legislators, you know, Sam Smith has been without power for 3 days.
Just for fundraisers.
So, can we do more? Absolutely. But from my perspective, I think we're doing a heck of a lot. Any other comments or thoughts? I think we're ready for roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Fiorello?
Yes. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Just as a public announcement, the building we're operating from today is our regular office building, and apparently there is a water problem. And that water problem, there's a leak, a pipe must have busted, or I don't know exactly what it is. So since the water has been shut off, that means there are no bathroom facilities available. Therefore, it has, my suggestion is that you all go home and work from home when this is, when we adjourn this meeting. I mean, unless you could go the next 8 hours without any use for a bathroom, you're a better person than I, if that's the case. So, it is, hopefully will be fixed by tomorrow. We'll try to keep everyone up to date, and as to the progress, and so on, and hopefully there will be running water tomorrow. Running in the pipes, not outside.
We didn't pick this up on any acoustical
Yeah.
device or anything?
It's
Well,
not gotten.
I was
not
wondering
gotten
about that.
Not that kind of break.
I thought we were putting a skating rink outside.
I did too, yeah.
Right, that's what I.
Well, you know, it was funny, I was leaving yesterday, and there's water out there, but I didn't think anything of it.
It's nice that there's a quantity issue and not a quality of water issue.
Right. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to make? If not, we're expecting some snow this weekend, and I heard one report, and I hope that it, well, it was kind of funny. This is a meteorologist on the radio. And the report was, we have this nor'easter coming, and there are 3 scenarios. Now, I never went to meteorological school, so I don't pretend to be a meteorologist. 3 scenarios were, according to this meteorologist, we'll get nothing, we'll get a little, or we'll get a lot. I could have given that report without going to meteorological school. So, if we do get something, stay safe, stay warm, and try to have a nice weekend in spite of the snow, unless you love snow. With that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
And we're leaving early to all go get our bread, milk, and eggs.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Move for adjournment.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.